And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you enjoying this first day of meteorological spring, if not astrological spring?
No, I think you're a little early. I think that's
No,
not for another couple weeks. It's usually like around the 20
no,
something.
that's the difference between astrological, which is the solstice or the solstice versus or the equinox versus the meteorological and astrological are two different ones entirely.
Yeah, the 19th, March 19th is the first day of spring.
Okay, well, I
That's the
think.
spring equinox.
Yeah, but that's astrological spring, not meteorological spring. Now, if you
Uh,
were a graduate of earth science, you would know the difference. There's actually two springs. We are officially in meteorological spring. So is it
well, I'll
spring
tell you, it hit about 70 degrees here yesterday.
70?
Yeah.
Oh goodness, what else am I going to tell you about? Oh, and daylight savings time is this weekend for those
Yeah.
who
And I thought we were done with this back and forth business.
we could didn't isn't it going to end next year? Didn't they finally pass something like that?
I think it passed one of the houses, but not the other side of the house.
Oh, good. No, who knows? Anyway, we can only hope. Anyway, you want to hear what we're going to try to talk about today?
Yeah. What's on the agenda?
All right. Well, by the way, it's the situation with Jersey Joe, news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And I've got some great stuff I guarantee you didn't hear on TV. In fact, I'm going to play something as it was recorded, and then I'm going to play it as it was edited for you to listen to on TV. And the difference is startling between what was said and what was reported. And it's going to be a clip of Joe Biden talking about aid to Gaza. You know who the actor Ryan Reynolds is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he's got a great quote this week about how some people have developed an obsessive fear of gluten, and it's a great quote. Um, Stupidest thing I've heard all week. We have two contenders. The first is the city of Chicago is suing the U.S. oil companies for causing climate change. And the second is New York State suing beef producers for doing the same thing. So one city suing the oil company, the other city is suing the beef producers. And I'm going to tell you why in both cases they're suing the wrong people,
Do we have anything else better to do with our lives?
but waste the taxpayers' money. This is startling. One of the most expensive cities in the country to live in is New York City. Well, we have a clip of a woman telling you how to live in New York City, how to live rent free and eat free in New York City, providing you don't get a job. And it's really sad that there are people who think this is the way life should be lived, and they're giving advice to other people of how to live life, go through life without working, and let the government take care of you. It's really sad. Um, you graduated college, right?
Yep.
Does the job you have require a college degree?
Yes, it does.
You want to take a guess of what percentage of college graduates today are working in jobs that don't require a college degree?
Probably about 50%.
Very, very close, and I'll give you the exact statistics when we get there. Um, by the way, I know of very few engineers and attorneys who don't have a college degree. So there's a little clue about what we're going to talk about, or doctors that don't have a college degree. So not all college degrees are created equal. Um, Hey, did you know that if you're an immigrant from another country, that instead of walking to the United States, you can get on a plane and the United States government will fly you taxpayer expense on a plane, and not just to the southern border. They'll fly you to any one of 25 different cities in the United States and deposit you in the city of your choice. Did you know that?
I did not know that. And our tax dollars are paying for this.
Your tax dollars. Why don't you watch the news? I'm sure the news has reported this. That
I haven't watched the news yet today.
and you know how many people they've done this for? You think it's more than 100?
Oh, I'm going to guess it's probably a few thousand if this
Oh,
story
it's
is
way,
true.
way. You think it's more than 10,000?
All right, I want to say yes, unfortunately.
Way, way more. We'll tell you about that. All right. Um, and we're going to play a moment with Biden in which he confuses the Gaza Strip with Ukraine twice in 30 seconds. And then we're going to play how the network news concealed that embarrassing slip up from the public when they reported on the story. Because they did report upon his promise to airdrop aid into the Gaza Strip, but how they cut and edited his comments so you didn't hear that him confuse it with Ukraine is really sad. Um, Hey, in New York City, how many times a year do you think you can get arrested for a felony and still be walking the streets?
Sadly, probably about a dozen times.
Unfortunately, you're right, and we'll give you some statistics from New York City. Um, and here's a first. I didn't realize you could get arrested for doing this, but I've got a story about a guy who was arrested and charged with, ready for this, smuggling greenhouse gases.
How do you do that?
I always thought you produced greenhouse gases. This guy was charged with smuggling greenhouse gases into the United States. All right. So you bet you never heard that one, right?
No, I have not heard that one. Not even sure how you actually do that.
And so what's the subtitle of this show? News and
Things
perspective.
you won't hear on mainstream media.
News and perspective you won't hear on TV. All right. So we got a bunch of them. All right. Oh, and our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Ohio, where a woman, her home is invaded by 3 armed men wearing ski masks. Somebody winds up dead, and I'll give you a clue. It wasn't the woman.
Hmm.
So does it sound like a good one?
And I have another theory. I bet 2 of the 3 ran away.
Well, I would bet you money, but I don't want to lose my money, so I'm not going to take that bet. All right. So here's a quote of the week from actor Ryan Reynolds. So I thought this was hilarious. And he said, "People in LA are deathly afraid of gluten. I swear to God, you could rob a liquor store with a bagel in this town." Can you imagine? Give me all your money. I got a bagel.
Yeah.
I mean, talk
I-
about a city where they take things to an extreme.
I was recently watching an old episode of The Rookie with Jack Fillion, or what's his name? Nathan Fillion.
Uh-huh.
And one of the characters on the show absolutely flipped out because there was a crouton in her salad.
A crouton in her salad, yeah. But I love this. I
Now,
swear to
granted,
God.
that was television, but I'm sure it probably happened in real life.
Oh, well, this is Ryan Reynolds commenting on real life. He says, "I swear to God, you could rob a liquor store with a bagel in this town." All right, so let's talk about the stupidest thing I've heard all week. And we have 2 choices. First, the city of Chicago is suing 8 large oil and gas producers because of alleged damage and cost the city claims is experiencing as a result of climate change. Now, there's a fundamental flaw in Chicago's climate lawsuit, in that I believe they're suing the wrong entity. Now, first, let me ask you a question. Um, is oil used for things other than fuels?
Yes.
Like?
Well, heating. It's also
No,
made
that's a fuel that you burn. That you burn.
yeah.
I mean, is oil used for stuff you don't burn, like plastic?
Well, it's used in the manufacturing of plastic.
Yeah, but very, very little. I mean, but you're not burning it. Shingles, asphalt,
Yeah.
aspirin, fertilizer, right? So it's really not the production. Yeah, I mean, there's always a little, greenhouse gas produced whenever you have any type of manufacturing. I mean, if you make if you make an air conditioner, you produce some greenhouse gases, but it's minimal compared to the burning of fossil fuels, right?
Yep.
And again, when you produce asphalt, yeah, you've got to heat it, but the asphalt, it's all trapped. All of that carbon is trapped. When you make shingles, all of that carbon is trapped in the asphalt shingle. When you make plastic, all of that carbon is trapped in the plastic. It's not being released into the atmosphere. So the fundamental flaw in Chicago's climate lawsuit is that they're suing the wrong entities. It's not the producers of the oil. It's those entities that burn the fossil fuels that are generating the greenhouse gases that are primarily responsible. Wouldn't you agree?
I guess, yeah. Yeah, the manufacturers, not the producers.
Right. So if you really want to go after the people that are releasing those greenhouse gases, you need to go after the people that are burning them. So the people the city of Chicago should be suing include, number one, the city of Chicago, right? Because how many city vehicles, right? How many city vehicles do they operate? How many city buildings are heated with fossil fuels?
Yep.
So they should name themselves as a co-defendant. They should name every airline that operates out of O'Hare, right? Because, well, you ever see when a jet takes off, how much
Oh, yeah.
jet fuel is? So they need to sue every airline that operates out of O'Hare. They need to sue the public electric and gas utilities that supply electricity and natural gas to the city. They need to sue any store, office building, or company that heats its buildings with natural gas. They need to sue the city bus company. They need to sue every person that owns and operates an internal combustion engine vehicle in the city. Um, so, I mean, because
I
those,
believe Chicago has a subway too.
yes, which runs on electricity, which is powered by the local utility that burns coal and natural gas.
Yeah.
Right. So, so that's my first stupid, that number one, they're suing the wrong people. They should be suing themselves.
Mhm.
And if they were serious, by the way, they would also seek an injunction forbidding all those entities, including themselves, from any future burning of those fuels, right? Because if
Mhm.
you're serious and this is causing you damage, you ought to seek an injunction to get all those defendants to stop using that. So they should shut down O'Hare Airport. They should shut down the city of Chicago. They should put all the police back on the foot patrol, get them out of their cars, stop running the buses. Anyway, oh, they also got the L. Yeah, they've got the elevated Chicago L, their above ground subway, which again runs on electricity produced by that. All right. Oh, they also should sue every company that operates an internal combustion engine vehicle in the city, which includes every delivery vehicle that delivers food,
Mhm.
fast food restaurants, beverage delivery trucks, beer, soda, bottled water, dry goods to stores like Walmart, UPS, US Postal Service, FedEx, Amazon, Uber, Lyft, every taxi company in the city. Um, so again, they should sue all those people and also seek an injunction mandating that all of the above entities immediately cease and desist using or burning fossil fuels within the city. Um, so anyway, so that's my take on them. Now, so let's move on to New York State Attorney General Letitia, who just got that big lawsuit against Trump. She's now suing JBS, one of the country's largest producers of beef, over the company's emissions associated with the production of beef. Um, in any announcement, she noted that beef production is the largest greenhouse gas footprint of any major food commodity. Now, you notice she's drilled down to food commodity. She's not saying it's the largest greenhouse gas producer. She's simply it's the largest greenhouse gas producer of any food commodity. And that agriculture counts for 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, not U.S. gas emissions, because it's a much smaller percent of U.S. gas emissions. So now she's kind of mix matching her claim. She's saying, well, because in other countries they've got a lot of cattle, but they don't have a lot of cars. So anyway, so between the state of New York suing beef producers for climate change and the city of Chicago suing oil producers instead of themselves, which one is the stupidest, the winner of the stupidest thing I've heard all week?
I don't know. This is tough, but I think I might have to go with Chicago.
I think I'd go to Chicago too, but man, she's a close runner-up.
Yeah.
She has nothing better to do with her time. Um, So listen, when you graduated from college, did you ever think of not getting a job and just kind of letting the government support you?
I think my parents would have disowned me.
Well, maybe you should have listened to this young lady here. She gives advice to other people why you got to be stupid to get a job and work. Because if you get a job and work, you can't get any of these things. So here's a quote. It's really quick.
I know you're like, huh? So boom, let's say you got mad kids and you don't want to work. You just want to stay home all day, smoke weed, be lazy. Go to a shelter, free housing. What's the next step? An apartment, free housing, or you're gonna have a little copay. But guess what? You don't have a job. So where's the copay gonna come from? Cash assistance. Where's the food gonna be coming from? Food stamps. So as long as you don't have a job, you will always have a roof over your head and you will always have food in your stomach. They will always look out for you.
Now, again, this is New York City only. So I'm going to play this again. And by the way, she talked about smoke weed and be lazy. That's her goal in life is to smoke weed and be lazy. So here, one more time.
Can I tell you something crazy about New York? Not having a job makes your life so much easier. I know you're like, huh? So boom, let's say you got mad kids and you don't want to work. You just want to stay home all day, smoke weed, be lazy. Go to a shelter, free housing. What's the next step? An apartment, free housing, or you're gonna have a little copay. But guess what? You don't have a job. So where's the copay gonna come from? Cash assistance. Where's the food going to be coming from? Food stamps. So as long as you don't have a job, you will always have a roof over your head and you will always have food in your stomach. They will always look out for you.
And how is she actually paying for this pot that she's smoking all day?
That cash assistance, cash assistance. And again, she's talking about New York City only. And by the way, remember a couple of weeks ago, we did this story about the housing inspectors, that
Mhm.
the 80
Yeah.
housing inspector. Again, that was NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, because if you don't have a job in New York City, they put you up in public housing.
Yeah.
And
I
by
mean, it's probably true for most cities around the country, not just New York City. But I mean, we've talked a lot about this on the show before, that a college degree doesn't necessarily mean that, there is not enough emphasis put on those trade jobs that make very good livings.
yeah, I mean, I was working with a company down in the Philadelphia area a couple of months ago, and their pipe fitters, the HVAC guys, their scale is $42 an hour, which is $84,000 a year. But all of these guys get overtime. So very, very few of these guys were making less than $100,000, because if you're an HVAC tech, particularly in the summer, I mean, so at a minimum, these guys are making, $82,000 a year, $84,000 a year. And it's very common for a lot of these guys to be making 100,000. I'd be out in the parking lot, when I'd see their, or I'd go to some of these, we'd go to baseball games and we'd have a company picnic. These guys are all pulling up in brand new
Yep.
brand new pick, and nobody's driving old beaters to these company outing events. These guys are
And
wearing.
interesting, I do notice about that, those people that, and I am stereotyping here, that those what are referred to as the blue collar, but skilled labor trades, they also don't believe necessarily in things like credit cards. So they're paying cash for those nice
Yep.
trucks.
And by the way, you know what a good diesel auto mechanic is making these days in a place like Denver?
Oh, probably $150,000.
Yep, yep. I mean, minimum, $38 an hour, and it goes up from there. But
Yeah.
particularly if you're working like in a Mack truck center,
Mhm.
where you're servicing these big tractor trailers. When I say diesel mechanic, I'm talking about the guys that just services a Mercedes or something.
Mhm.
But the guys who are doing rebuilds on these big, yeah, they're making over 100,000 hours. So yeah, diesel mechanic, welder, plumber, carpenter, pipe fitter, just crazy, crazy money. And you don't need a college degree. Yeah, and you go to trade school for a year, or you go through it. By the way, if you go an apprenticeship program, you pay nothing and they pay you to be an apprentice.
Mhm.
So you come out of an apprenticeship program debt free with money in your checking account. But anyway,
And a lot of these trade schools, the high schools, actually, you can start these your junior, senior year of high school.
yep,
By the time you graduate high school, you have most of your trade school under your belt, and you may only need an additional 6
Yep.
more months or 9 months of trade, and you can be working full time, making 100 grand 9 months out of high school.
my son-in-law went to a trade school, learned how to become an HVAC tech, and I think it was like an 8-month course, and
Mhm.
he had his pick of jobs when he got out. But anyway, so I just want to flash back to that woman in New York City. So what percentage of the population you think thinks like that woman and say, yeah, that's what I need to start doing?
It's sad that the socialism that is waving over our country, that there's a lot more people that think like that the
Yep.
government, that everything's free. And I got news for y'all, nothing is free, that somebody's paying for that.
Yep.
We as taxpayers are paying for her to sit at home.
So much.
Yeah. And by the way, I know I've played this before. I'm looking for my favorite Benjamin Franklin. Remember my Benjamin Franklin quote about poverty? You remember that quote?
I do know what you're talking about. I can't think of what his exact words off the top of my head.
Let me see if I can find his quote. Here it is. And here's what Benjamin Franklin said about poverty 200 years ago. He said, I think the best way of doing good for the poor is not making them easy in poverty, but leading or driving them out of it. In my youth, I traveled much and observed in different countries, the more public provisions were made for the poor, the less they provided for themselves and became poorer. So again, Franklin's solution was don't make living in poverty comfortable, make it uncomfortable.
I think a few years ago, there was I believe it was the state of Maine, said that if you want public assistance, that you have to give back somehow to your community.
Yep.
And the number of people on public assistance dramatically dropped.
Yeah,
And I
it's
don't know if
called
that was a pilot program or an ongoing program, but maybe more states need to look into that, because everybody, regardless of your, what, even if you have a disability, you are capable of giving back to your community in some fashion.
it's called workfare. Democrats hate it, and they always put it over. And here's what it's typically is that if you're able-bodied and not a caregiver, so first of all, say, hey, if you got little children, you have an aged parent, but if you're able-bodied, you don't have a physical disability.
No, I think even people who have physical, intellectual disabilities, I see them out in the workplace earning a living and not on public assistance.
Well, I said a physical disability, but again, if you're not, so it's called workfare, and what the states that have done it have said this: hey, if you're not disabled and you're not a caregiver and you're under the age of 55, you either have to uh, work three choices: work at least 20 hours a week, B, attend free state-sponsored job training classes to learn a trade, or C, perform community service 20 hours a week. Now, 20 hours a week is 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Go and community service could, by the way, could be, working at a, picking up trash at the local ball field, donating your time at an old age retirement home or something. But for some reason, liberals hate that. They think it's cruel to force people to either get trained or do community service or work 20 hours a week. But yes, it's called work fear. I'm a big supporter of it. For some reason, Democrats hate it. Anyway, you want to go on to this college graduates that
Yeah.
you guessed right, by the way. Here's a recent study. 1 year after graduation, 52% of college grads are working in jobs that didn't require a college degree. 10 years later, 45 are still working in jobs that don't require a college degree. So the lesson for your kids and grandkids is if you're going to go to college, make sure you select a field of study for which there's high demand for college graduates. And those fields include, this isn't all of them, but some of them: engineering, medicine, law enforcement, the law, be an attorney, be a paralegal, business administration, marketing, computer science, architecture, veterinary medicine. Any you want to throw in there?
Yeah, no, and there's such a shortage of, I work very closely with our pre-vet program, and there's such a shortage of veterinarians in this country.
Yeah, and even
There's a shortage of medical staff in
Right.
this country, period, across the board, whether it's humans or animals.
even vet techs, vet techs, nursing. I mean, you know, dental assistants. It's just incredible. So, and I think I've told this story at the Starbucks I used to go to on a regular basis when I was back in Colorado. I got to know the manager of the store quite well because and there were a lot. And I said, let me ask you a question, Frank. I said, what percentage of people here have a college degree? And he leaned over and he said, 13 out of the 16 people who work in this Starbucks have a college degree. 13 out of 16. Can you imagine? You go to 4 years of school, maybe 5. You come out with $80,000 worth of debt, and you're working in a Starbucks. I just shaking my head, and I can only imagine so if you go to a third-rate school that nobody's ever heard of and get a degree in art history, yeah, you're going to wind up working in Starbucks, or you're going to wind up working as a clerk at some store. But you got to think about who's going to hire you. I mean, with one thing, you get a degree in art history and you get it from Harvard or Yale, and maybe you get hired by some big museum. But if you get a degree in art history from Podunk U in Alabama, you think you're going to get hired by any museum to be an art historian for the museum?
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen. All right. How much time we got?
You got about 10, 12 minutes.
All right. So I teased the fact that the U.S. is flying in immigrants from other countries. Well, the Center for Immigration Studies had to file a Freedom of Information Request Act called FOIA, Freedom of Information. Biden's Customs and Border Patrol approved the latest flights that transported hundreds, not dozens, not hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants from foreign countries into at least 43 different American airports from January through December of 2023. So in 12 months, they flew in, and here's the kicker, more than 320,000 illegal aliens were given free airline flights from their home countries into 43 different US airports.
Why?
Well, they wanted to, they didn't want to bring them to the border because they said they had too much congestion and backlog at the border. So, you know what a international arrival airport is, right? Where you have
Yeah.
customs border. Believe it
Yeah.
or not, so in addition to the big airports like Atlanta and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, little private airports like where I used to keep my planes, Centennial Airport in Denver, Colorado, they had a lot of private jet flights would come in from Mexico and other places. Denver was an international airport, and you could call and make arrangements. And when you pulled up, they would direct you to a big box painted on the tarmac, and you couldn't get out of the plane. And the customs officer would come on board the plane and check your credentials, and go through your luggage, and release you. But you actually went through customs at Centennial Airport in Denver. Well, there are 43 different American airports, some of which are major, but a lot of them are minor that are international airport. And so that's what's been happening. And that was just for last year. We don't know how many arrived in the year before, or how many are still arriving. But as a result of the Freedom of Information Act, and I had the link to this article, producer Susan, if you want to put it up on the
Yeah,
website to learn
absolutely.
more. But can you imagine 320,000 immigrants from foreign countries flown at taxpayer expense to 43 different American airports, and then after they've had their credentials checked and been processed. And process means we took your picture, took your name, took your fingerprints. You're free to go. Here's a notice to appear before an immigration judge sometime in the next 5 years. That's what process means. And then they're just released in whatever city that plane landed in. I'm shaking my head. All right. All right. This is really disturbing to me. We talk about news you don't hear on TV.
Mhm.
So there was a news conference last week where Biden was meeting, I think, sitting with some like the prime minister of Italy, and the topic was aid to Gaza, humanitarian aid to Gaza. Well, so Biden was asked about humanitarian aid to Gaza. And here's what Biden said. I'm going to play the whole clip and listen to how he twice in 30 seconds, and he's reading from a note card, by the way. This is not impromptu. This is not unscripted. He has a note card, and twice in 30 seconds, and he's talking about humanitarian aid. He refers to Gaza as Ukraine. And here we go. But so listen to him do this twice.
The United States will do more. In the coming days, we're going to join with our friends in Jordan and others in providing airdrops of additional food and supplies into Ukraine.
Into where?
Ukraine, he just said.
Okay, and so we're going to, all right.
And supplies into Ukraine, and seek to continue to open up other avenues into Ukraine.
And seek to open other avenues into where?
Into Ukraine.
Into Ukraine. So that's actually, he did it twice in 10 seconds, referred to Gaza as Ukraine. Now, here's ABC News. You ever watch ABC News with David Muir?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, here's David Muir reporting on the story, and they've got this same piece by Biden, but listen how they chop and cut it so that you never hear him, how they edit out the fact that he's confusing that. So here's how they report it. And you hear, if you hear the word Gaza or Ukraine, here you go.
In Gaza, President Biden tonight announcing the US will begin airdropping supplies into the Gaza Strip.
People are so desperate that innocent people got caught in a terrible war, unable to feed their families, and you saw the response when they tried to get aid in.
When they try to get aid in, click, cut it right out, right?
Yeah.
So in this same ABC News report, I now have to jump ahead because they cut back to Biden, and here's what they say when they cut back to Biden, right about here.
Airdropping food
Well,
and supplies in
And you saw the response.
500,000 brink of famine. The UN saying at least 10 children have starved to death. Jordan and other countries already airdropping aid. The president acknowledging not enough is getting in.
Innocent lives are on the line, and children's lives are on the line.
Tonight, condemnation.
And that's it. They cut it again. So
Mm.
how deceptive.
Yeah.
I mean, so when I say news and perspective, you won't hear on TV. That's perspective on TV, because if you only get your news from the TV, you would have never known that your president twice in 10 seconds referred to the Gaza Strip as Ukraine. And I mean, don't you think that should have been reported? I mean,
Yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
that was newsworthy
Shame on ABC and the other mainstream media who do that.
for doing that. So anyway, I was stunned when I saw them cut and chop that interview together. Anyway, so let's talk about crime in the New York City subway system. So I asked you how many felony arrests? Well, the police said a suspect known for targeting victims in New York City has been arrested nearly 50 times and convicted 30 times. He's awaiting trial on the others. He was arrested again last week for jumping this is a guy that assaulted somebody with a knife. He was arrested again last week for jumping the turnstile in possession of felony narcotics and was charged with additional grand larceny against the 56-year-old woman who was going on about her daily business, marking his 6th arrest this year. Now, this year, what's today's date?
It is March the 5th.
So how many days are in this year? We had what, 30 days?
There's
January?
about 65-ish days so far into the year.
So this guy's been arrested 6 times this year, which is roughly once every 10 days.
Yeah.
He's been arrested 6 times this year, with 4 being felonies.
Mhm.
According to Chief John Trinell of the New York City Police Department, Trinell added that Faulkner has 47 prior arrests and 28 convictions. So, and again, it's not the fault of the police. Who's it the fault of?
The prosecutors and the ADA
And the judges. And the judges.
And today, coincidentally, I don't know if it's New Jersey, but today is Super Tuesday, and there's a lot of states who are having their primaries today.
Yep.
And these are the primary elections where you get to vote for these people.
Yep. And when you let them out on the street, they just commit more. Let me put it this way. If this guy had been sitting in jail after his first felony arrest this year, he wouldn't have committed the other, whatever they were, the other 6. Anyway.
So I think we need to move on to our taxpayer relief shot because we are running out of time.
All right. So we're going to save smuggling greenhouse gases till next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to hear that one.
All right. We'll save that. All right. How much time we got left? Really?
5 minutes.
All right. Well, real quick, here's why we call them taxpayer relief shots. Here we go.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
All right. And here, this one comes to us from Ohio.
Her own matters into her own hands and shoots a man who tried to break into her home. And now that man is dead. 2 News reporter Kelly King tells us where the investigation stands as of now. Kelly?
Trotwood police say that woman was at her home with her 4 children this morning when 3 armed men broke in, and her quick thinking is what helped keep her and her family safe. Officers say the men were all wearing ski masks when they forced their way inside just before 6 this morning. Police say the suspects grabbed the woman, assaulted her, and forced her into a back bedroom, holding her at gunpoint. Police say the suspects were trying to steal her husband's safe. At one point, the woman was able to get away and grabbed a gun hidden in her dresser. Police say when she opened fire on the suspects, they ran out of the home. A bullet hit at least one of them, who was found dead on the neighbor's lawn about 100 yards away.
There's obviously some reason why they picked this house. We're still not sure as to the reason or the motive behind looking for that. We do know that the male who is divorced from the female there uses the home still as a business address.
Police are still looking for the other 2 suspects. If you have any information, call Crime Stoppers. That number 222-7867. Kelly King.
And what did you predict about the other 2?
And I honest to God, I did not hear the story prior to this show. And I had it, I guess, that two of the people would run away because it happens every single time. There's more than one assailant, one gets shot and the rest flee.
The rest flee. Yep. So yeah, 3 on 1, and they had guns, and apparently she was not afraid, and she got the gun and started shooting. I guess she wounded one, and he dropped dead on the lawn before he could get away. And you're right. Anyway, anything you want to add before I sign off?
Nope, but curious to see how Super Tuesday plays out here.
We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I want to thank all of you who listen to me ramble on for giving up 30 minutes of your day. Hope you found them as interesting and important as I did. And so hope you continue to listen. If you want to see some materials and story links you heard me talk about, producer Susan's going to post them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. That's JERZEE, jerzeejoe.com with an R and a Z. If you want to send me an email with a question or suggest a show topic, again, it's just joe at jerzeejoe.com. And unless you've got something else, producer Susan, I'm ready to sign off. How about you?
Yeah, no, and enjoy the quote spring that we've just entered, although I do predict one more good snow before the end of the year.
You're probably right. All right. Talk to you next week. Take care.
All right.